At no point in losing 180 pounds did I ever think to myself, wow, I should pack up my entire family and go to the other side of the world. Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Katie, and for those of you who don't know me, I used to weigh 360 pounds, and I've lost 180 pounds and kept it off for years now. And on this channel, we will discuss weight loss, weight maintenance, nonsense I see online about body positivity and fat acceptance, my experiences with all of that, and, well, anything else I feel like talking about. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below, and let's get into today's video. So today, I have several TikToks from a new friend to the channel. As she goes by on social media, Solidarity Stitch Company. So let's go ahead and see what our new friend has to say, and I'll give you my reactions along the way.
Fat people are gonna die if they don't lose weight. Oh, okay. Well, can I get some exercise clothes to go to the gym with? No. Our clothes only go up to 2X.
Okay, so it appears that our friend is having a conversation with herself. Because, of course, that always leads to realistic conversations the way that people would normally talk in everyday life, right? Okay, but also to our friend, I would say there are a lot of options for athletic clothes beyond a 2X. I know there are because we've covered numerous influencers on this channel that were seeking out clothes beyond a 2X or a 3X or whatever their parameters were. And specifically just a couple months ago, I covered Samira trying to find clothes for her 5K. And she found plenty of clothes, both at Old Navy, and then evidently she found her race outfit, I believe at like Dick's Sporting Goods. There are lots of options out there. So if our friend is having difficulty finding clothes in her size, I would suggest she just keep searching because I know that they're out there. And the other thing that I did bring up in that Samira video, and I'll reiterate here again, you don't need to go and buy brand new clothes to go work out in or have a matching set. You can work out in an old t-shirt and an old pair of sweats. It doesn't have to be anything brand new. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It just has to be clothes that you're willing to go work out in and get sweaty in. It's literally all you need. So when I keep hearing this notion that you need to go find brand new workout clothes, I think that's definitely doing a disservice to their community because they truly believe that they have to go find new workout clothes to go to the gym. Where again, you can wear pretty much anything you're willing to work out in.
Okay, well, can I go to the gym to work out without people recording me? That is not our responsibility. Okay, well,
Okay, and is that something our friend has experienced, or is that just her projecting her fear so that way she doesn't have to try that experience? She's setting herself up to this idea that that will happen, whether or not it actually would. Because, at least to my knowledge, there are a lot of gyms that have policies against recording others. I mean, correct me down in the comments below if I'm wrong. It has been admittedly about 10 years or so since I've had a gym membership, but I see what other people post online, and I've also seen plenty of people get called out for trying to record others in public, and I feel like that was something that's already been kind of debated and settled on the internet, that we're not supposed to be recording others while they're working out, right? I mean, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but again, it just sounds to me like our friend is allowing her fear to stop her from even trying the experience in the first place.
well, I went to the gym anyway, and these people are actually really nice, but I think something's wrong. I'm not losing any weight. So can I get a doctor that treats my symptoms instead of just telling me to lose weight? Well, they went to medical school and got their degree, so they know what they're talking about. Maybe you're the one that's the problem. It's calories in, calories out.
Okay, and that is accurate. It is calories in, calories out. And I do also understand the frustration of going to the gym, working out a lot, and then not feeling like you're seeing results on the scale. The reason that happened for me was because I had not addressed my diet in any fashion. I was just working out and assuming that that was going to take care of my horrible diet at that point. And the reality is, you cannot outrun a bad diet. You simply cannot. Now, something that I've heard repeatedly, and I personally do believe it to be true, at least from my own experience, losing weight is going to happen 90% of the time in the kitchen and 10% of the time in the gym. The gym is really not for weight loss. The gym is for cardiovascular health. It's for strength training. And yes, those things can lead to weight loss if you couple it with changing your diet. If you don't address the diet aspect of it, chances are you're really not going to see a whole lot of change on the scale. So to me, when I hear it worded that way, it doesn't necessarily indicate to me that something would be wrong. It just would indicate to me that perhaps the approach might need to be modified a bit.
Okay, well, I went to a bunch of specialists, and they said that I need weight loss surgery, so I spent a bunch of money trying to get this surgery, and now I can only eat 600 calories a day, but I'm not losing very much weight. I really think that something is wrong.
Okay, so the way that that was worded, she said she wasn't losing very much weight, but that would indicate to me she was still losing weight. Just maybe not as quickly as she had anticipated, perhaps. I mean, assuming that this is an actual real life scenario and not just something concocted for this TikTok skit, but we'll assume it was real life, and I'm going to have a lot of questions then. Okay, first and foremost, how much weight did she lose? Second off, how long did it take her to lose that weight? Then the other question that I'm going to have is that amount of calories she listed. She listed 600 a day. Well, when you look that up, that is typically the recommendation for after surgery. Now, personally, I have not gone through weight loss surgery, so I can't say for certain, but when I looked it up, that's what I did come across. So again, if I am mistaken, please correct me down in the comments below. But it would make me wonder why on earth she would be eating that amount of calories if she hadn't had the surgery yet. I mean, I understand that there's a whole program that you have to go through, and you do have to show that you're adhering to that program. But you don't just go from your average amount, and we'll just say you were eating 3,000 calories a day, down to 600 calories. It's an actual program to get you there as well. So I have a whole lot of questions for our friend in the way that she just described that scenario.
God, you fat people always complain about something. Just say that you want to be unhealthy. Well, no thanks to you, I found out that I have a genetic fat disorder that makes losing weight pretty much impossible. But thanks for making my life a living hell. I'm sure it was great for my health.
Okay, and spoiler alert, I did go and look further on our friend's page, and it does appear she does have lipedema, because that is the answer for everybody now within fat acceptance. And this isn't to say that lipedema isn't a real disorder. Of course it is. But unfortunately, because so many people within fat acceptance and body positivity have talked about their lipedema, specifically glitter and lasers, we have found out quite a bit about it as a community, have we not? Yes, the areas in which you have the fat that is affected is going to be really difficult to lose weight or impossible to lose the diseased area, but that typically affects your extremities. It's going to affect like your hips, your thighs, maybe your calves, maybe your arms. It's not going to affect your midsection. It's not going to affect your face. It's not going to affect so many other areas of your life where weight loss can still be achieved. So yes, I do understand that there are conditions out there that make things more difficult to lose weight. It might make it impossible to lose weight on the affected areas of your body. I understand these conditions exist, but I do understand that there are plenty of things you still can do even with those conditions. Personally, I have PCOS, and at my heaviest, or around my heaviest for sure, it was untreated, it was symptomatic, it caused a lot of issues in my life. It was not fun to deal with at all. However, I was still able to lose weight. Yes, it did take me quite a long time. It took me 7.5 years to lose the weight. And again, I did have a couple of kids in the middle of all of that, but we'll take out the 2 years or so roughly that I was pregnant, and we'll say 5.5 years. And a lot of people would still think that that is a long time to lose 180 pounds. And yeah, comparatively to other people's weight loss stories and weight loss journeys, yeah, it was a long time. But just because it was going to take a long time doesn't mean I couldn't achieve it. It just meant that I had to stay the course. And this was something I had to learn as I was losing weight, because it became apparent to me very quickly that this was going to take a long time. So I had to make peace with the fact that every step in the right direction, no matter how small, would eventually get me to my destination. And that making small baby steps was so much better than standing still or walking backwards. If I wanted to get to that goal, I was going to have to try to keep moving forward. At the very least, not move backwards, but try to move forward as much as I could, no matter how slowly it was. But if I hadn't taken those steps, I never was going to get to where I wanted to be. But let's go ahead and see what our friend has to say in this next one.
Hey, real talk, I think these gym gooners are in a dangerous cult and we don't talk about enough. In this TED Talk, I will... No, really, but I'll keep it brief though. If you want me to go more in depth, just let me know in the comments. So I follow the cult leader, Captain Danielle Messinek, and she has a list of 10 red flags of cults. And booey, do that gym bro culture hit every single one of them. Let's go through them real quick.
Okay, so I gotta say, she's got my curiosity piqued, so let's go ahead and see what they all are.
The charismatic leader and his skinny white woman. Every cult has a messiah, and in this case, it's the alpha male podcasters, the shredded motivational speakers, the TikTok influencers who tell you that you're not disciplined enough to do the work, but don't worry, he's got a solution. And his girlfriend, hot, thin, and agrees with everything that he says. Well, until she doesn't fit his standards anymore.
Okay, does she have an example of any of that, or is she just putting out blanket statements? Because the definition says a charismatic leader, meaning a single individual. And then she proceeds to list off 3 categories of people: alpha male podcasters, motivational speakers, and influencers. So already by its very definition, it's not fitting, because there has to be one singular leader for it to fit that definition. So it doesn't appear that she's using this criteria to determine whether or not this group is a cult. She's working under the assumption that it is and trying to make it fit.
2, a sacred assumption. Here, it's fat is bad, thin is good. Health equals weight loss at any cost. Your effort equals your morality. There is no room for nuance, just belief.
Okay, and already I have more questions, because people go to the gym for lots of different reasons. And this whole idea that fat is bad and thin is good, they must have never been around a bodybuilder who is trying to go for gains. A lot of times they'll bulk and then they'll shred, right? Like, again, correct me if I am wrong here, but I've known plenty of those individuals. And again, that just doesn't add up at all.
3, a transcendent message. You're not just working out, you're going on a holy quest to becoming the best version of yourself. Their promise? Your salvation through suffering.
Through suffering? What? That really does shine a light to me on her mindset. The idea that anything that she would do at the gym or working out in any fashion would be suffering. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you are very out of shape and you do start to work out again, or just try to move your body more, start walking more, stuff like that, yeah, there's going to be a little bit of a hump that you might have to get over, and then you're going to start feeling a hell of a lot better. So if she's equating this with suffering, that would indicate to me that she's never done it, or never done it for a long enough time that she felt any of the benefits from it.
4, self-sacrifice. You're encouraged to hurt, to skip meals or have bland chicken breasts and unseasoned rice, to ignore your body when it's screaming no in the name of discipline. Injuries, starvation, that's just commitment, baby.
what? Again, does she have examples of this, or is she just making stuff up in her mind and projecting all of her assumptions onto everyone else? The idea that you're going to what? Skip meals, which personally doesn't align with any of the advice I've ever seen given online. I'm not saying that there isn't terrible advice out there, but at least the advice that I've come across, pretty much everyone talks about how important it is to fuel your body properly for your workout. What type of workout are you doing? Are you doing a very cardio heavy workout that day? Are you doing strength training? There's different ways you'd want to fuel your body depending on what activity you're about to do. If you're going to go run 10 miles or go lift weights for an hour, it's a very different scenario. And there's a lot of people that talk about that in depth. So I'm not really sure at all where that came from. And then the idea that you're going to have bland chicken and unseasoned rice as the way to sustain yourself. Really? Really? First off, I've got actually 2 spice cabinets. My first one overfilled, and now I had to split it into my savory spices and then the ones I use more for like baking. But yeah, you absolutely can use tons of seasoning. Now, if you're going to use like sauces and condiments, you'll definitely want to be careful with that and take a look at the ingredients and nutrition facts on the back, because you'll find a lot of those are stuffed full of sugar and salt. So definitely be careful with those. But seasoning, come on, you absolutely can season your food. And quite frankly, once I learned how to properly season my food and realized that food could have a lot of flavor to it, it really opened up a lot of things for me. And I learned how to be a better cook. I cook at home a hell of a lot more now. And I want to eat my own cooking as opposed to eating restaurant food, because yeah, I know how to properly season my food. So that's just very comical to me on a personal level, but also I don't hear anybody talking about that anymore. Like, that sounds like diet advice from maybe the 80s or the 90s, that if you had like any flavor in your food, that evidently that was going to be the problem. But I feel like we've really moved past that over the years, or at least I would hope. And then when she talks about working out, she's still stuck on this idea that it's suffering. She talks about how your body's going to be screaming no, that you're going to have to push past injuries, and just this idea that you're only going to hate it and you'll never get any benefit from it. You'll never actually see results, and the thing that was once hard isn't quite as hard anymore. And again, I understand that that's the hump you have to get over when you do start working out, especially if you're really out of shape. But you can get over that hump. And then once you do, you feel infinitely better. You have more energy. Your joints feel better. You feel stronger. What part of that is suffering? I mean, at least personally, that doesn't sound like suffering at all. But it's this idea that she's got her head stuck on that mindset, that because she is so out of shape, any amount of physical activity she goes to try to do at this point is likely going to be taxing on her body and probably leave her tired, might leave her sore. And yeah, at her size, I understand that if she goes from 0 to 100, there's a decent risk of injury there. However, there's a lot that she could do that would not lead to any of that. You can walk at a moderate pace. You can swim. You can dance around while you're doing housework. And if you do those things consistently and then keep doing them, it gets a lot easier. And then if that gets easier, you might be willing to try something else. So I do understand if you're really out of shape, the idea of becoming one of these gym people can be really intimidating. I do understand that. But I also understand that you don't have to go from 0 to 100. You definitely don't want to try to work through injuries, just so we're all clear. And there's one other thing that she said that kind of really stuck out to me. The idea that your body might be screaming no at you, or that you really don't want to do it, and that you're going to have to dig deep and find that discipline to finish it, right? And the reason that stuck out so much to me, well, I've talked a lot on this channel about how much I love doing my races. I love doing my 5Ks, 7Ks, 8Ks, right? And I'm sure I will continue to talk about how much I enjoy it, because I really do love doing these races, despite what I'm about to say. There are so many weeks when I have a race coming up where maybe I'm just not feeling well. Say it's Shark Week and endometriosis is just kicking my ass that month. Or I look at the weather and it's forecasted to be 80 or 85% humidity at race time. That's disgusting and just really doesn't sound like a good time to sign up for, right? Or maybe I just really want to sleep in and don't want to hear my alarm go off at 5:15 on a Saturday morning. There are so many weeks where I could easily talk myself out of doing something that I love. But each and every time I finish a race, I feel fantastic. I have that sense of accomplishment and I can't wait for the next one. And I understand that I'm going to have to get over that hump of getting up early or maybe working through not feeling well that week or the weather is not going to cooperate. But I can work through those things and then get to that sense of accomplishment, get to the benefit of actually having done that race and then wanting to do more. So again, I understand getting over that hump. But you have to get over that hump. You can't just say that it's there and then that be the thing that stops you, right?
5. Isolation from outside ideas. You unfollow fat people. You block body neutrality. Anyone who questions the grind is soft or making excuses. Suddenly, your whole world is the gym. Everything else is suspect.
Okay, and again, does our friend have examples of this, or is she just creating a caricature in her own mind? Unfollow fat people, block body neutrality. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? Now, if that fat individual is preaching fat acceptance or fat liberation, I could understand why somebody on a weight loss journey might want to unfollow them. Because they're going to talk about how losing weight is impossible or fat phobic or detrimental to society in some way. I'm not really sure. There's always a reason why losing weight is bad. So if that's the type of fat creator she's talking about, yeah, I can understand why they get unfollowed. And then blocking body neutrality, that doesn't even make any sense, but we'll go with it. And again, oftentimes, these movements will get hung up on the idea that you shouldn't or can't change your body. So if that is your goal, why would you be following accounts that are incongruent with your goal? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. If you have a goal you wish to achieve, shouldn't you be following individuals who either have achieved that or know how to achieve that, regardless of what that goal is? So again, that whole thing, it just feels like she's creating this caricature in her mind.
6. A secret language. No pain, no gain. No days off. Discipline over motivation. It's just a calorie deficit. That's not jargon, that's code. And if you don't speak their language, you're not part of their chosen.
That's not a code though. That's not a secret language. We know what all of those phrases mean, even if you haven't gone to a gym. So that would kind of defeat the whole purpose of it being a secret language. A secret language would indicate that people outside of the group don't know what that means. I mean, okay, let me give you an example. Okay, I am a huge baseball fan. I've been a Cleveland fan for as long as I can remember, right? And with the different metrics out there now and advanced statistics, there's plenty of things that even casual baseball fans aren't aware of, let alone people who don't pay attention at all to baseball. So, for example, Jose Ramirez, our third baseman, he has a tremendous WAR.
Now Jose and Anderson square off. They're fighting. Down goes Anderson.
Absolutely tremendous. If I were going to build any team from scratch right now, I would just take a look at WAR per position. And yeah, Jose is going to be my third baseman. So what does that actually mean? It stands for wins above replacement. And how they actually come up with the number and what exactly all goes into it is even above my head. I'll be the first to admit. But I do know you want a high one. That's a good one. So that much I can tell you. So yeah, baseball definitely has a secret language or a code, but all of the things that she just listed for, quote, gym culture or whatever, it's not a secret. We all know what they mean.
7. Us versus them mentality. They're healthy, you're lazy. They're grinding, you're gross. That's not fitness, that's supremacy.
Okay, and again, does she have an example of this? Or is she just making a caricature in her own mind and projecting it out onto everyone else?
8. Exploitation of labor. You're told to push, suffer, sell, recruit, and pay for it too. Coaching packages, meal plans, protein pyramid schemes, questionable dietary supplements. They're profiting off of the shame that they're conditioning you into.
Okay, so it sounds like she's describing an MLM, actually, and not a gym. Now, look, I understand there are some gyms out there where they're a little bit more pushy with the personal training and the coaching and the this and the that. I understand that. I truly do. And to that, I will say, it sounds like she might want to find a gym where they're a lot less pushy. I have been a member of the Y numerous times in my life. Now, again, admittedly, it was about 10 years or so since the last time I had a membership, but they weren't pushy at all there. They let me know the classes they had and that they did have coaching and training available, but once I told them I wasn't interested, that was it. I just went in and worked out and went home. So it sounds like she is trying to base all of this off of fear-mongering of what she is afraid it is, or what she has heard from other people that it is. So again, does she have examples of this? Or is she just creating this in her mind and trying to project it onto everybody else? That if you go to the gym, you're going to fall down that rabbit hole. And that if you do this, you're going to end up just like them. Because I have to be honest, it's what it feels like she's doing. And the reason that I can recognize that is because I used to do the same thing. I used to tell myself that if I joined a gym, I'd become just like them, and I didn't want to ever become just like them. And then what happened? I joined a gym for myself. I realized I could be whoever I still wanted to be. I didn't have to be them. I didn't have to be anyone else. I could be myself still. I could just be myself in better shape. And this whole idea of it being exploitation of labor, you're paying for a service and getting a benefit back in return. Getting into shape is a benefit. If you go to the gym and you work out, it's going to make it easier to lift heavy objects. It's going to make it easier to climb the stairs. It's going to make it easier to lift your grandchildren when you're older. Those are all benefits in my book. So this idea that it's exploitation of labor, that is such a reach and not at all what this list was intended for. And then circling back to what this list is supposed to be used for, and that's to help identify cults. Really, let's go ahead and take a look at cults that we know existed and look at how they did exploit people's labor. Often they would be doing very physical, demanding jobs, either in fields or around the house. Very physical labor for 12, 14, 16 hours a day on very little sustenance. Okay, that is not at all comparable to somebody going to the gym and working out for 45 minutes or an hour after work. That is just not comparable at all.
9. High exit costs. You try to leave and the guilt hits you hard. Weight gain? You're the failure. Rest? Weak. That gym family that you built your whole life around cuts you off. You're not just leaving a routine, you're leaving a faith.
Leaving a faith? When did the gym become a faith? Did she explain that and I just blacked out when she did or something? Or did she just pull that out of nowhere at the last possible second at the end of this video? Maybe she'll explain why it's a faith. I'm not really sure. I don't know. Wow. Okay. And again, let's go ahead and circle back to what this is supposed to be about. Cults, right? Okay. So again, we have plenty of examples from previous cults or potentially current cults of what exit costs actually mean. You'll be cut off from your family, your friends, anybody who was in that group. There are a lot of people who have left Scientology, so if you want to know more about that, that's where I would suggest looking. So when we talk about high exit costs, oh no, you might have a little bit of guilt, and then people that you thought were your friends were not your friends when you no longer do the same thing that they do. That just sounds kind of like life, honestly. That doesn't sound like a high exit cost to me. That just sounds like a Monday morning, actually. No, but realistically, who hasn't had some sort of guilt or feeling like a failure at some point in their lives? And sometimes we might want to look a little deeper, and if we're feeling guilty or feeling like a failure, we might want to take accountability for our actions. Just because you might have a negative feeling around something, that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. You can take that and turn it into an opportunity and try to turn it into something positive.
And 10, the ends justify the means. They will literally die on this hill. EDs, chronic injuries, damaged metabolism, all excused in the name of results. As long as you're losing weight, they don't care what you lose with it.
And again, it sounds like she is just concocting these excuses in her mind. I don't hear people talking like this on a regular basis. I really, truly don't. The idea that we're just going to accept everything as long as you get to the end results. No, I don't personally hear people talking about any of that in these spaces. Again, if she's got some examples, I'm all ears, but it really does just sound like she has concocted all of this in her mind, all of these reasons and excuses to why she doesn't need to go to the gym, because she is better than everybody else who does go to the gym and is apparently in that cult, right? And it feels like she has positioned herself as morally superior because she can see through the idea that it's a cult, when in reality, it feels like it was all based off of false assumptions.
All this isn't discipline. It's indoctrination into a dangerous ideology. Tomorrow, we'll talk about what actually healthy groups look like and why fat liberation is the kind of exit door that some people are terrified of.
All right, there we have it. So evidently, if you go to the gym and you work out, you are evidently just in a dangerous cult. But if you're looking for a healthy group to emulate, we should be looking towards fat liberation. Okay, well, we do have a couple more TikToks of our friend to go through, so let's go ahead and see what she says in the next one. Maybe she will bring some examples for us. Okay, and our friend is responding to a comment that reads, LOL. No, fat people have absolutely not been around for millennia like they are today. Are you serious? Okay, so let's go ahead and see how our friend responds to that. Okay, and first off, we have a picture that says, these are members of the Fat Men's Club of New York City, 1904. Members had to be at least 200 pounds, pay a $1 fee to enter, and learn a secret handshake and password. Okay, so all that indicates to me was that in 1904, 200 pounds for a man was considered fat. So yeah, that kind of does line up with what that commenter said, that we didn't exist previously like we do now. But let's go ahead and see what else she brought to this. Okay, and we got some pictures here, and let's zoom in. Okay, and that is Kate Keithley. And if we look her up, it appears she was a circus sideshow act. I'm assuming because of her weight, because it was listed at 810 pounds. And unfortunately, when you look her up, you do find that she lived to the ripe old age of 35. So I'm not really sure if this is the example that she wanted to give, but it's the example she did give. All right, and the other two photographs, those are actually circus sideshow performers as well. And that last one, I'm not sure if that's a painting or if that's AI or what that is, but it's not a real photograph, so I'm not really sure why she included that. That being said, we do have the statistics readily available, especially for America. Obesity rates have tripled since 1960 alone. I could only imagine what they would be if we were able to go back to 1904, where a 200-pound man would be in the Fat Man's Club. So, I don't know. Let's go ahead and read the description, and maybe this will give us some more clarity. Okay, it says, the ugly laws were a set of laws that targeted poor people and disabled people, which included fat people. Those who were deemed, quote, diseased, maimed, mutilated, or deformed in any way were meant to be out of sight of the public. The exceptions were freak shows and circuses. The last of these laws were repealed in 1974. So let's talk about the ugly laws. Unfortunately, a lot in that description is correct. There were a set of laws on the books. Some were done by state, some were done by locality, and people that had deformities or visible disabilities were not allowed to be in public. But you can find that these laws were on the books, and the last one was repealed in 1974. Now, that being said, when I did research this, I couldn't find a whole lot on the actual enforcement of these laws. How often were these laws actually enforced? So the other thing I can't help but notice when I was researching the ugly laws, at no point ever did it mention fat people. At no point whatsoever. And then just thinking logically here, we know from the example that she just gave us at the beginning of this TikTok that in 1904, New York City had a fat men's club. They met in public, presumably, and had their picture taken. How did any of that happen if these individuals weren't able to leave their house? How did they go out in public, get their pictures taken, and form the club in the first place? How did they do any of that if fat people were actually included in the ugly laws? Because realistically, I can't find fat people being included in any of these laws on any of the books ever. And if we go ahead and use even more logic, most of the ugly laws that were ever on the books, they were passed around 1870 to 1880, somewhere in that era of our history. And if we look at the body standards of that era in history, pleasantly plump was actually acceptable. And Sam at Every Size has actually covered this previously, so I'll go ahead and link her video down in the comments below so that way you can check it out if you haven't already. But looking at the body standards of the time that these laws were enacted, being fat was not considered ugly. It was considered desirable. It was considered a sign of wealth and your status that you had ample food to be able to grow to that size. So this idea that fat people would have even been included in the ugly laws at the times that they were enacted just doesn't logically make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But these laws did explicitly target disabled people. And once again, it feels like fat acceptance is trying to sidle up to the disabled community. It feels like they're trying to take our credibility or our clout or something, or trying to conflate these issues so that they're included in this. Where again, I could not find any examples where fat people were included in these ugly laws at the time they were written and enforced. It feels like they're taking modern standards and trying to apply it to laws that were passed in the 1800s. And again, I'm still very curious about the enforcement of these laws. And part of the reason that I'm so curious about this is that these laws explicitly targeted disabled people. And for those of you that don't know, my grandpa was blind. He was born legally blind and then lost the rest of his vision throughout the rest of his life. But even as a child, you could see visually looking at him that there was something not right with his eyes. You could tell by looking at his glasses that he had visual impairment. And my grandpa was never subjected to these laws. He went to school, he got married, he had children, he had a job. I mean, my grandpa was very much a member of society. So again, I am just incredibly curious about the actual enforcement of these laws. But the one thing that I just could not find in all of my research is the idea that fat people were somehow included in this. But let's go ahead and take a look at this last video and see if our friend clarifies any of this. Okay, and our friend is responding to a comment that reads, "But there are fat people because of famine." So let's see what she says about that.
Excellent point, and we have studies to prove it too. Exposure to famine early in life increases your likelihood of becoming obese later in life. Also true for teenagers exposed to famine and pregnant folks. And the way that epigenetics works, it impacts more than just 2 generations. Because women with ovaries are born with all the eggs that we have, not only does the pregnant person have the daughter also has all of the eggs for her future children as well. Our environment impacts our health way more than people give it credit for. But wait.
And I think most people do understand that when we are talking about extreme cases, when we are talking about literal famine, that, yeah, that's going to cause a lot of issues for the growth and development of children. So I'm not discounting that. But is she about to say that a diet is the same as famine?
But wait, diets aren't a famine. Your body can't tell the difference between famine and long-term calorie deficit. It still thinks that you're starving and will act accordingly, which is why
No. That is just inaccurate. A slight caloric deficit is not at all the same as experiencing a famine. And trying to conflate these two issues is just absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But to be fair, I shouldn't expect anything less from these movements. I should not expect anything less from fat acceptance, because they've tried to tell us that your body can't tell the difference between eating junk food or eating an apple, and food has no moral value and all food is the same. I mean, they are literally trying to conflate so many things. It's absolutely ridiculous. If you, for example, were eating 2,500 calories a day on average, and then you drop down to 2,200 calories a day, that's a caloric deficit from where you were sustaining your previous weight at. And yes, you will lose weight, but that is not at all the same as experiencing famine, where people will literally, I don't know, try to eat leather or grass or wood because they are that hungry and there is no food whatsoever to eat. I really hope we can see the difference, right? I really hope I don't have to keep explaining that. Oh my God.
up to 95% of people will gain the weight back, even the ones who dressed up their restrictive diet by calling it a lifestyle change. Healthy habits.
Oh my gosh. It's just all the same talking points over and over again from these groups. It just is 95% of diets fail, blah, 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 blah. No, they don't. They don't. And no matter how many times that gets debunked or discredited, they just cling to it. And they will never drop this notion that 95% of diets fail. So I guess what? Should I just consider myself to be the lucky unicorn that's in the 5%? No, of course not. It's calories in, calories out. And you can go into a slight caloric deficit to lose weight. And that's not at all the same as a famine. And then once you lose the weight, if you maintain those calories, you'll maintain your weight. It's really not rocket science, but they have to make it so overly complicated because they just don't want to admit the reality of this.
Habits like exercise and intuitive eating are far more healthy for you and future generations than artificially putting yourself in starvation mode.
Oh my goodness. It was like she took every single buzzword that has ever existed for fat acceptance and just kind of threw them all into that blender of a word salad or something. It was, wow. That was a lot. Okay, starvation mode does not exist. You're either starving or you're not. And a slight caloric deficit is not starving. You might not be as full as you always were, but that is also not starving. Okay, my family, or at least a branch of my family, came to this country because of the Irish potato famine. And if you actually read up about what happened and what people were trying to live off of and how they were trying to sustain themselves, no wonder some of my ancestors got on a boat and thought that was going to be a great idea to do like a 2-month journey across the sea. At no point in losing 180 pounds did I ever think to myself, wow, I should pack up my entire family and go to the other side of the world. Because I wasn't experiencing famine. My ancestors did. And I'm sure many of our ancestors did. But it seems like they're trying to use the idea that because we may have ancestors that have gone through famine at some point, that's the excuse as to why they're going through the drive-thru now. So yeah, I understand that our environment can greatly impact our health and our development. I truly understand that. But I also understand that our choices and our actions can also greatly affect that as well. But maybe that's just me. Let me know down in the comments below. What do you think? I'm genuinely curious and I love reading all of your responses. That is where we will leave things today. I thank you so much for joining me. Please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you all in the next one. Bye! Hiya, baby. Is it about to be Mario Kart time? Yeah. I'm about to go kick my husband's butt in some Mario Kart. At least I hope. I mean, it is Mario Kart, so I could very well get my ass kicked. Who knows? But what do you think? You want to come sit with me? Yeah, we're going to go play? Let's go. Bye!